Chapter 275. Elvis's expression froze as he looked up at the surprised look on Gu Mingming's face. Was she pretending to like him to comfort him? Gu Mingming rubbed her face against Elvis's large tail, her mood soaring. Unlike Li's tail, Elvis's tail was not as fluffy nor did it have a firm layer of fur. The fur was slightly harder than Li's, but it was not to the extent of prickling her hands. Gu Mingming inserted her fingers into the base of Elvis's tail and stroked the fur upwards. The feeling between her fingers felt like she was skimming over a fine beach. It was clearly filled with hard particles, but it carried the warmth of the sun and a unique delicacy. This was different from Li's absolute fluffiness and softness. It was soft with a hint of firmness, fluffiness with a hint of stubbornness. The punk style of the furry world. Gu Mingming's intoxicated look made her forget herself. That soft gasp of admiration turned into a whimper in her throat. It was the first time in his life that a magical feeling came from his tail, causing Elvis to be petrified. From Gu Mingming's actions and gaze, he could clearly feel that Xiaoming really liked his tail and was not pretending to comfort him. This knowledge made him very excited, and the electric current coming from the tip of his tail directly charged a certain part of his body. The uncontrollable change made him feel rather uneasy. He secretly looked at Gu Mingming, who was unable to extricate herself from stroking his tail. He realized that she did not notice his abnormality at all, so Elvis fell into a strange struggle. He really wanted to pounce on Gu Mingming, but she was so focused on stroking. Would she be angry if he disturbed her? What if she cried out of anger? It was said that pregnant women should not be angry, they must maintain a good mood to give birth successfully. But what if she could not hold it in any longer? Gu Mingming felt Elvis's tail gradually stiffening. She kicked Elvis's butt in dissatisfaction and said, "What are you doing? Relax." Elvis swallowed his saliva with difficulty, then lifted his beast-skin skirt helplessly and said, "Xiaoming, it's a little difficult for me to relax now." Gu Mingming then noticed Elvis's huge reaction. She was so shocked that she hurriedly hugged his large tail to calm herself down. She stroked his large tail while saying, "Elvis, calm down. I'm in the early stages of pregnancy now, I can't withstand your torment. If you poke me with that stick, my baby and I will really die in front of you." Elvis had a bitter and conflicted look on his face. His deep eyes clearly showed that he was burning with lust. He stared at Gu Mingming but did not dare to act rashly. Gu Mingming cleared her throat. She could not bear to see Elvis being so aggrieved, so she cleared her throat and patted the seat beside her, saying, "Why don't you sit over here? I'll think of another way to help you." How could Elvis not be satisfied? Thus, he flipped over and climbed onto the bed, lying down obediently, not moving an inch. Elvis's actions were so swift that the large tail that was originally in Gu Mingming's arms slipped away. How could this work? Gu Mingming slapped Elvis's buttocks and with a crisp smack, Elvis's face instantly burned up. Bearing with the dryness in his throat, Elvis looked at Gu Mingming while panting heavily. He looked just like a frightened grandmother wolf. "What are you looking at? Who asked you to pull your tail away? Quickly return it to me or else you can just hold it in. I don't care about you." Gu Mingming raised her head with an expression of a queen attacking. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling of Xiaoxiang Academy, LJH1319983886, for your rating ticket, and thank you to the little darling of QQ Reading Jido for her 99 reading points. Password 7K3Y Daily Group Expansion 4927799273. Chapter 276. After all, Gu Mingming was still responsible to Elvis. Since she had lit the fire, she had to extinguish it herself. However, this person in charge was semi-automatic. Halfway through, she fell into a deep sleep from exhaustion, leaving Elvis to slowly deal with the rest. Luckily, Elvis's heart ached for her and did not dare to torture her too much. After releasing it once, he cleaned up the mess for her and placed her on the bed to let her sleep. After getting pregnant, Gu Mingming could sleep even better than before. When she woke up due to thirst, she did not know how much time had passed. Gu Mingming lifted the beast's skin and before her feet touched the ground, Elvis had already passed her a cup of water. "You're awake? Drink some water to moisten your throat." Gu Mingming tasted it lightly. It was warm and the temperature was just right. Gu Mingming felt much better after drinking a cup of warm water. Stretching her arms, she leaned on Elvis's shoulder lazily and asked, "How long did I sleep?" In Elvis's world, there was no such thing as a few hours to keep track of time. After thinking for a while, he could only reply vaguely, "I slept for most of the day." Gu Mingming rubbed her flat tummy. She did not look any different, but when she knew that there was a baby in her tummy, she still felt that it was very magical. Although she did not feel hungry, but even if the adults did not eat, the little ones still had to eat. Although Gu Mingming did not have much experience as a mother, she knew that she could not let her own children starve. So Gu Mingming rolled up her sleeves and prepared to make some food. When she walked to the pot, she remembered that Leah had left before she went to sleep, saying that he was going to look for snacks for her. She slept for half a day. Why didn't she see Leah when she woke up? Gu Mingming turned around and asked Elvis, "Did Leah come back when I was asleep?" Elvis took out a piece of beast skin and put it on Gu Mingming. This piece of beast skin was designed according to Gu Mingming's own ideas. It would be an exaggeration to say that it was a design. It was a complete piece of giant rabbit skin with the front paws and soles removed, then sewn into a simple sleeve. Gu Mingming's arms were thin and could fit through it. The back legs only needed to be sewn according to the thickness of Gu Mingming's calf. A few beast skin ropes were tied around the abdomen. Actually, it looked like mini one-piece cartoon pajamas on Taobao, just that Gu Mingming was wearing a giant rabbit. The fluffy white fur complemented Gu Mingming's skin very well. Before the firelight, she was like a jade doll emitting a warm glow, making people want to get close and protect her. Elvis helped Gu Mingming put on the giant rabbit pajamas while replying, "No, it's very difficult to find food during winter. I reckon it would take at least 3 to 5 days." Gu Mingming was a little depressed, feeling that her character was really not that good. She clearly knew that Leah was treating her so well to redeem their relationship, but she had already mated with Elvis and could not possibly reconcile with Leah. Yet she still made him do all this for her. She really smelled like a rotten green bitch. Elvis did not know what Gu Mingming was thinking about, but seeing her depressed look, he felt a little depressed. Wrapping his arms around her waist, Elvis hugged her from behind and whispered into her ear, "Why? Miss him? Do you want me to find him for you?" Gu Mingming pinched her nose and said exaggeratedly, "So sour." Aside from the topic, thank you to the QQ reading babies covering the moon, like the moon, seeing the deer in Han Shi, Firefly Deer on the Other Shore for gifting 100 reading points. Thank you to all the babies who supported Susu during the PK period. This is the last PK chance we have before we go on the shelves. If we pass it, Susu will get a very important recommendation spot. This spot is really very important to Susu. So babies, please help me to leave more comments, and that free recommendation ticket every day, please give it to me, please. If we win the second round of PK, there will be a third round of bonus points. If we lose, then one will go on the shelves directly. Chapter 277. Elvis smelled it seriously and didn't notice any sour smell. He didn't mind and just stared at Gu Mingming, squinting his eyes and saying, "Is it because I didn't satisfy you just now?" So, as Elvis said, he carried Gu Mingming up horizontally. Needless to say, he was going to make up. Gu Mingming hurriedly shook her head and said, Don't, I'm pregnant and I can't overwork. My old waist is still hurting now." Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's exaggerated acting and couldn't help smiling. He tapped her little nose and said, "You can have many partners, but you must love me the most." Gu Mingming raised her eyebrows and looked at Elvis with a strange gaze, unable to differentiate between joy and anger. Elvis's heart tightened. Did he cross the line? This kind of request, females really don't like it. Elvis sighed. What did he say just now? But Gu Mingming grabbed Elvis's ear and twisted it, pulling it upwards. She said with a smile on her face, "I can have many partners? What do you mean? Are you suspecting me of having an affair with Leah? Or are you expecting me to have an affair with Leah?" Elvis's ear hurt from being twisted, but he felt a tinge of sweetness in his heart. Gu Mingming's strength was not light. She didn't let go as she questioned, "Why? Do you think I'm annoying and want to push me into someone else's arms? You don't want your wife and children anymore?" Elvis didn't care about his ear and just hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and kissed her, saying, "I can't wait for you to only have me by your side, but I want you to be happy." Which eye of yours saw that I'm not happy? Gu Mingming saw that Elvis's ear was already red from being twisted and her heart ached so much that she let go. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at Elvis stiffly. Elvis's mood was a little down as he said, "You looked so disappointed to find Leah not around when you woke up." Gu Mingming poked Elvis's brows and said, "Leah is not my husband. He braved the wind and snow to find snacks for me and is still not back so late. How can I have a clear conscience and pretend that I don't know how to eat and sleep? If we owe them a favor, how are we going to return it in the future? It would be great if nothing happened to him. If something happened to him, I would be traumatized for the rest of my life. It's only right for males to do things for females. If it wasn't for the fact that only Leah could move freely during winter, I think all the males in Saint Nazaire would be willing to do these things for you. Gu Mingming once again felt the communication barrier caused by the difference in views. She remained silent for a moment to organize her thoughts before asking, "Why do males treat me so well? Just because I'm a female? Or is it because you want to express your goodwill and mate with me?" Elvis was confused. "What's the difference?" Gu Mingming said, "If someone treats me well and I accept it, I have to repay them in some way. For example, I ordered Bode to find the honey because I taught him how to get it without getting hurt, and he gave me some of the honey I taught him. I accepted it without any burden. But if he wants to give me half of the fish he catches, I can't take it. Similarly, I can accept the food, beast skin and other daily necessities that you prepared for me because you are my husband. But I won't accept these things if they are given to me by others. Because if I accept them, it will give others a wrong hint and make them feel that they can mate with me if they put in more effort for me." Aside from the topic. Chapter 278. Elvis listened without fully understanding and did not interrupt Gu Mingming's words. Gu Mingming took a deep breath and continued, "If you are not really considering accepting him as your partner, you should not have given him such an illusion right from the start. This kind of use is too shameless and a person of integrity like me cannot do it. And now, Leah is staying in our cave because of your injury, and his cave is temporarily occupied by the Eagle Owl tribe. He helped us when we were in danger, we can't possibly burn the bridge and chase him away, right? So I agreed to let Leah stay in our cave, but I don't want to receive too much care from him." Gu Mingming paused and sorted out her emotions before continuing, "Leah and I, you know about it too. But no matter how much I liked him in the past, now that I have become your partner, I don't want him to think that we can return to how we were in the past if he treats me better. So the best way is to not cross that line and maintain a distance that is neither too far nor too close to each other. If he went to look for snacks for me today and only needed about half an hour to return, then I can accept it. We are friends, it is normal for him to run errands for me when I am pregnant. But if he needs to be gone for 3 to 4 days, to me it is too much of a burden." After hearing that, Elvis remained silent for a long time. His blue eyes were as deep as the ocean. He pondered for a long time before asking, "Leah, you really don't intend to forgive him?" Gu Mingming did not answer and asked back, "You hope that I can forgive him?" Elvis hesitated for a moment but eventually nodded his head. Gu Mingming sat back and pulled some distance away from Elvis. She frowned and asked, "And then? What do you hope that I will do after forgiving him?" A blood vessel popped out on Elvis's forehead. His struggle and conflict did not need to be described and it was obvious. After what felt like a century, Elvis finally replied with a dry voice, "Accept him and let him be your partner." "What about you? Are you leaving me?" Gu Mingming asked coldly. Elvis looked up suddenly and shook his head firmly, "I will not leave you, not at any time." Gu Mingming crossed her arms in front of her chest and said, "I can only have one partner, you know that." Elvis tried to hold Gu Mingming's hand but was flung away by her. Elvis knew that Gu Mingming was angry but he still decided to continue. Taking 2 steps forward, Elvis circled Gu Mingming in his arms and rested his chin on Gu Mingming's neck. His voice was so hoarse that it made one's heart ache. "I long to enjoy you alone, to let you belong to me alone. But, other than the time he spent with you, his life was worse than death. There was only hatred and destruction in his eyes, just like me back then." Gu Mingming could vaguely feel something. Chapter 279. Elvis could tell from Gu Mingming's expression that she wanted to know what had happened in the past. Although those memories were not pretty and it would be bloody if he peeled open his wounds, but if he could talk about those things, other than Gu Mingming, there was no one else he could open his heart to. Elvis sighed and asked, "Where do you want to start?" Gu Mingming placed her little hand on Elvis's chest and placed it on his left chest to feel his heartbeat. She leaned into his embrace gently and said softly, "Start from the part where you are willing to share with me and where you will not feel uncomfortable." Elvis recalled his past seriously. When he was hugging Gu Mingming in his arms, he suddenly felt that the countless sleepless nights and the hatred and bloodlust in his heart were not worth mentioning. After having Gu Mingming, he felt that those torturous days were just a nightmare that passed by in the blink of an eye, so blurry and insignificant. Since she was talking about Leah, then he should put those painful past aside for now. Xiao Ming's mood would only be affected if she knew about those unhappy things. With that thought in mind, Elvis hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and said slowly, "Let's start from the day I met Leah. At that time I was still a lone ranger and I met Leah who was covered in wounds in the depths of the forest. He was on the verge of death and could not even maintain his human form, but he refused to lie in the ditch and wait for death like a normal beast. Instead, he raised his head and stared in one direction with determination. I did not know what he was looking at, I only knew that gaze. I had seen it countless times in the reflection by the water. Elvis paused and smiled sarcastically. He continued, I don't even know what I was thinking at that time. For some unknown reason I gave half of my food to him. Then, I sat together with him and ate the first meal in my life with someone accompanying me peacefully. That feeling was very strange. It was clearly the first time we met, but it felt like we had known each other for a long time. We did not need to say anything and we could understand each other's thoughts. Or, it was not that we did not need to say anything but those feelings could not be expressed in words. Elvis looked down at Gu Mingming and asked, What are you laughing at? Gu Mingming rubbed her tummy and answered, If I had not mated with you, I think I would really believe that you and Leah are a couple. Gu Mingming had already answered this question a long time ago. Elvis frowned and sighed, How can two males form a pair? Gu Mingming pouted and mumbled softly, Only people of the same sex need to attack and receive. How can people of different genders love each other? What did you say? Elvis gritted his teeth in anger. How can we love each other when we are of different genders? Now that they had a baby, what else could it be if it wasn't love? Chapter 280. What the heck, this question was too serious. If she answered honestly, Gu Mingming had no doubt that Elvis would make her lie in bed until her son was born in order to prove his masculinity. What the heck, just thinking about it made Gu Mingming's legs go numb and her hip bones turn soft, while her heart shuddered. Laughing dryly, Gu Mingming rubbed her temples and pretended to be forgetful. Sigh, people say that pregnancy makes you dumb for 3 years. I just got pregnant and my memory deteriorated rapidly, the things in the past, I can't remember anymore. Elvis did not know what to do with Gu Mingming, but he was not a fool. Raising his brows, Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little nose and said, Remember, I will ask you again 3 years later. Think about it carefully then answer me. Yes, sir, hubby. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's arm obediently and looked up at him. Continue, what happened next? Elvis sorted out his emotions that were messed up by Gu Mingming and continued, After we finished eating, Leah suggested to me to create a tribe. I was very shocked at that time, there were only the two of us, how could we create a tribe? And at that time I was used to drifting. Settling down was something that I had never thought of. But at that time I did not have anything worth doing. Creating a tribe was just one of the many crazy things that I had yet to try. At that time, I had the thought of accompanying him for 2 days and leaving when I felt bored, so I agreed to his suggestion. That year, the two of us fought side by side, using battle after battle to tear open a gap in the territories of many tribes, delineating our own territory and forming the embryonic form of Saint Nazir's territory. But at that time our tribe did not even have a name. In the spring of the second year, Leah and I went to the female beauty pageant. It was the first time we met Maya. She was originally accompanying the first beauty of their tribe to participate in the contest, but on the way back they met stray beasts. The males in the tribe could not protect both of them at the same time, so they chose to give up on Maya and protect the first beauty with all their might. But it was a pity that stray beasts were not the type to give up easily. They asked one of them to look after Maya, while the other one attacked with all their might, fighting for the other female. In the battle, the female was bitten to death by a stray beast that had gone berserk. Instead, Maya, who had been abandoned from the start, managed to survive because she curled up quietly at the side. I originally didn't want to bother about these troublesome matters, but Leah said that for the tribe to develop, there must be females. And females saved from the stray beasts are the least likely source of conflict. So the two of us saved Maya from the stray beasts and brought her back to the beauty pageant. Chapter 281. Revenge. Gu Mingming did not understand what he meant and asked, To whom? We have never asked each other this question, but we both know very well that in our hearts, there is someone we need to take revenge on. Elvis paused for a moment before continuing, Now it seems like Sauter is the one Leah wants to take revenge on. What about you? Gu Mingming pressed on. Elvis lowered his head and met Gu Mingming's eyes. His blue eyes reflected the light from the fire, just like the starry night sky, so dazzling that one could not look away. Gently rubbing Gu Mingming's little head, Elvis said with a gentle face, Now I can no longer remember what I hate because those, compared to you, are too insignificant. Gu Mingming's heart warmed and she smiled, I am very honored to be able to walk out of your unhappy past with me. In the future, we will be very happy. Elvis nodded, his smile full of tenderness. He lifted Gu Mingming's little chin and kissed it, saying, So, don't ever leave me. I don't want to go back anymore. Yeah. Gu Mingming nodded and kissed Elvis back. Elvis carried Gu Mingming and placed her on his lap, then used his chin to gently rest on the top of her head. Looking at the burning fire, he slowly opened his mouth and continued, I don't know what the people of Sauter did to Leah, but I know that Lee's hatred towards them is inextinguishable. From the start, his decision to build Saint Nazir was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. Gu Mingming was taken aback and continued Elvis's words, What you mean is, from the start, Leah wanted to build a strong tribe to fight against Sauter for revenge? Elvis nodded slowly and said, Meeting me was an opportunity, his plan only started to form after meeting me. I don't know why he would place me in such a central position and not become the tribe leader himself. With his abilities, even without me, he should be able to achieve his goal. I've asked him this question before and his answer was, I'm more like a living person than he is. Gu Mingming did not quite understand the meaning of this sentence. She wanted to raise her head to take a look, but Elvis pressed against her little head to stop her. He played with her little hand and continued, This sentence is very strange, right? Over the years I would occasionally think of these words but I never understood them. It wasn't until I met you that I saw with my own eyes what Leah meant by living. Can you imagine? In the days before I met you, Lee's expression had always been smiling and had never changed. Regardless of whether he was facing an unreasonable female or a powerful, despicable, or vulnerable opponent, his expression was always the same. No one could tell his emotions from his expression, not even me. But after meeting you, his eyes began to shine, and his smile began to represent his emotions. I even saw jealousy in his eyes. Just because you ignored him when you were fooling around with Sandy. He gradually recovered from being a shell, and started to look like a living person bit by bit. Only then did I know that he said those words back then. Perhaps it was because I would at least express the emotions of disgust or impatience towards certain things while he did not even have these two emotions. Aside from the topic. Chapter 282. Gu Mingming found it hard to imagine. What kind of life was it for a person to not have any feelings of disgust? Or, could he still be considered alive? Elvis hugged Gu Mingming's little head and kissed it, continuing, A person who has not had any emotions for many years, any emotion he feels now will be magnified many times more than an ordinary person. The amount of happiness he once felt because of you is the same amount of pain he feels now. I'm afraid he can't withstand such a huge difference. Gu Mingming's heart tightened too. She felt a sense of guilt as if she did not kill him but he died because of her. Biting her lower lip, Gu Mingming felt a little discouraged and said, But I can't mate with him just because I pity him. If I don't love him but accept him, wouldn't his future life be even more miserable? Maybe, after a period of time he won't get any reciprocation from me and will slowly give up? Or maybe one day he will meet someone better and realize that I'm not worth his persistence? Elvis smiled and held Gu Mingming's little face, saying seriously, In this world there's no one better than you. Gu Mingming felt good being praised by her own husband, but she was too embarrassed to admit it, so she said, That's just what you think, others might not think the same, right? Elvis sighed. He hoped more than anyone else that the two possibilities Gu Mingming mentioned could come true, but he knew better than anyone how impossible these two possibilities were. Persuading his own female to accept someone else, Elvis could be considered a precedent in the beast world. Because other females did not need persuasion at all, it was something that could not be stopped. They could just casually go out for a walk and come back home with a few new members. But the one in their family was so caring, so gentle, so unbearable. I won't force you to accept Leah, but at least give him some time to get used to it. Don't be too cruel to him before he gives up. Elvis's hand tangled with Gu Mingming's fingers lightly, feeling extremely conflicted. Who would be willing to let his wife find a few more men? But, if I hadn't challenged him to a duel that time, he would be the one with this happiness now. Every time I see Leah being sad for you, I feel like a despicable thief who stole the happiness that should have been his. Gu Mingming suddenly laughed. She looked up at Elvis and asked, Do you really think that you won me from a fight? Elvis nodded his head seriously. Gu Mingming really did not know whether to laugh or cry and was too lazy to explain. She just hugged Elvis's face and kissed his chin, saying, All right, then you better improve your skills well. If we lose one day, our family might have a few more family members. Elvis remained silent for a moment before asking, Will you accept Leah if he defeats me? Gu Mingming did not answer but asked back, If I say yes, will you go easy on me? Go easy? Where to put it? Elvis asked seriously. Gu Mingming was speechless. She rearranged her words and said, What I mean is, if I say yes, will you purposely lose to him? Chapter 283. Gu Mingming nodded her head in satisfaction before wrapping her arms around Elvis's neck. You will listen to me, right? Elvis nodded without hesitation. Gu Mingming pressed her forehead against Elvis's and said, I want you to be invincible. Elvis was stunned and his lips curled up. He kissed Gu Mingming's lips and said softly, All right, from today onwards, there will only be death in battle and no defeat. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, Only victory, no defeat and no death. I don't want to be a widow and I don't want my son to be an orphan. Elvis followed Gu Mingming's hand and looked at her flat stomach. There was a strange feeling nourishing his entire body. Placing Gu Mingming on the bed, he knelt on the floor and pressed his face against Gu Mingming's stomach. He held his breath and concentrated on listening to something. Gu Mingming smiled and said, It's only been a few days, what can I hear? I can only hear it after 3 to 5 months. Elvis tilted his head and looked at Gu Mingming saying, They should give birth in about 60 days. After 3 to 5 months, you don't have to listen anymore and they should be able to run around. Gu Mingming was stunned and asked with her eyes widened, What? 60 days? Elvis nodded and said, The gestation time for wolf cubs is about 60 to 63 days. Gu Mingming deeply felt that ever since she came to the beast world, her life seemed to have pressed the fast-forward button. First love, heartbreak, marriage, pregnancy. Everything happened in such a short time that she did not even have the time to carefully savor each feeling before rushing to the next stage. What's wrong? Elvis asked. Gu Mingming's face was bitter as she said, People say that a woman is like a princess when she's in love, like an empress when she's married, like an empress when she's pregnant, and after giving birth she has to be an old mother for a generation. I only became a princess for a few days and you're already in a hurry to mate. You're an empress for less than a month and you're already an empress. I thought it would at least be a full month but you want me to return to the court and start a long journey as an old mother in just 2 months. Sobs, sobs, sobs. Elvis, I've really suffered a loss in marrying you. I want a refund, I want a refund. Elvis completely did not understand the difference between princess, empress, and old maid. Or rather, he did not understand the meaning of these titles at all. Gu Mingming's emotions had been fluctuating greatly ever since she got pregnant. He was especially afraid that she would be angry because she said that if a pregnant woman was angry, it would result in a miscarriage, which was very dangerous. So Elvis asked carefully, Do you want to be a princess, an empress, or an empress? Gu Mingming twitched her lips and said, I don't want any of them, I want to be a queen. Alright, then you can be the queen. Chapter 284. Elvis laughed, Silly girl, the females in the beast world are only responsible for breastfeeding, the rest is done by the males. Gu Mingming was overjoyed and raised her eyebrows high, asking, So, you are the one taking care of the children? You don't need me to? Elvis nodded, Yes, queen. But you have to take care of the children and me during my confinement, won't it be too tiring? Although Gu Mingming had never given birth before, she had the experience of taking care of little kids in the past, so she knew how scary naughty children were. Confinement? Elvis caught the main point. Yeah. Gu Mingming nodded. After a woman gives birth, all the bones in her body will be more or less displaced, so she needs to rest for a month to let her bones return to their original positions. She can't be exposed to the wind, nor can she be tired, or else there will be repercussions and she will have to suffer for the rest of her life. Gu Mingming still did not know how big of a hole she had dug for herself with her words. Elvis remembered this sentence firmly in his heart, then said, It's all right, let Leah take care of the cubs, I will take care of you. Gu Mingming raised her eyebrows asking, It's not appropriate to throw your own children to others. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's forehead saying, Xiaoming, don't be too cruel to Leah, at least allow him to do something for you. Or else he really won't be able to survive. But, Gu Mingming frowned, feeling very burdened. But Elvis smiled, his smile was exceptionally evil. Males who have not mated cannot break through the bottleneck of the 3rd level. I am a 4th level beast now while Leah is 3rd level, he can't beat me. Gu Mingming reacted for a while, then looked at Elvis with a, I didn't expect you to be such a scheming B*TC face saying, So you said, those who can't beat you can't become our family member, but as long as they have not mated, they can't beat you. So you want to order Leah around like a free Filipino maid? Is this alright? Is this really alright? Aren't the two of you good brothers who have depended on each other for many years? What happened to the friendship of life and death? How can this friendship of yours capsize so easily? But Elvis remained indifferent saying, He can leave if he's unwilling, I won't stop him. Gu Mingming shook her head helplessly and said, I didn't expect you to be like this Elvis, you're so black-hearted. Elvis pulled Gu Mingming's little hand over and kissed it before saying, "So, you don't have to feel burdened. Just accept his kindness. When he defeats me, you can consider whether or not you want to accept him." Gu Mingming still wanted to say something, but Elvis stood up and walked to the side of the stone pot, saying, "Leah cooked 3 days' worth of food before we left, and asked me to pour a bowl of it into the pot to heat it up for you to eat. I'll take this bowl today." With that, Elvis poured a bowl of unknown substance into the stone pot. There was originally a finger-deep pool of boiling water in the stone pot, and when the frozen food fell into the pot, the boiling water splashed everywhere. But Elvis's face was cold and he did not dodge. He just stared at the pot as if he was facing a formidable enemy, constantly comparing the situation in the pot with the food that Leah told him to take out of the pot. Looking at Elvis, who was obviously not good at cooking, but kept learning and trying hard for her sake, Gu Mingming could not bear to discuss more about other men with him, especially when this man was her ex-boyfriend. Chapter 285. On the third night, Elvis's cave entrance was once again destroyed from the outside. Gu Mingming came out wearing a beast skin and saw Leah sweeping the snow off his body with his fluffy tail under the bright moonlight. The moment he saw Gu Mingming, the snow fox transformed into a human, leaving behind a large furry tail and a pair of cute fox ears. "Mingming, I'm back." Lee's smile was even brighter than the moonlight. He stomped his feet at the entrance to shake off all the snow on his body, but raised his hand to stop Gu Mingming from coming closer. "Go back inside and wait for a while, I'll come in after warming myself up." "It's alright, I'm not cold." As Gu Mingming said that, she walked to Lee's side and held his hand, leading him into the depths of the cave. As they walked, she said, "Elvis said just now that the food you prepared has been finished. If you still don't come back, he will personally cook for you." Thinking about his cooking skills. Leah did not say a word and just followed behind Gu Mingming quietly, letting her hold his hand. This feeling was like a dream. He had been searching for small things for her to eat these 3 days. Every time he was about to freeze, he would tell himself that Mingming was still waiting for him, so he had to come back alive. But when he really saw Gu Mingming waiting for him, he could not believe it. Was Mingming not angry at him anymore? He did not dare to ask this question. He did not even dare to make a sound, afraid that this was just a hallucination before he died frozen in the snow. Once this illusion bubble burst, all that was left in front of him was the howling wind and the cold snow, composing the music of death. To be able to see such a scene before his death, he decided to forgive all the cruelty in the past on account of the beast deity's kindness. Entering the depths of the cave, Elvis was stirring the food in the stone pot with a serious expression. He looked up at Leah and said, "If you don't come back soon, I'll think you died outside." Leah smiled faintly and did not say anything. Gu Mingming pulled Leah to the side of the fire and made him sit down. Then she took a beast skin and draped it over him. "You must be tired after being wild for 3 days, right? Have a good rest after eating. If there's anything else, let's talk tomorrow." Elvis clapped his hands, indicating that the food was ready. He then took out the biggest bowl and scooped a bowl for Gu Mingming, before taking out 2 smaller bowls for himself and Leah. He passed the bowl to Leah, but Leah did not reach out to take it. Elvis frowned and said, "You still want me to feed you?" Leah suddenly smiled and carefully took over the small bowl. Then he took a small sip. This illusion is really realistic. Even the temperature and smell are so real." Wow. Gu Mingming had just taken a bite when she suddenly vomited. She squatted by the bed and vomited until she could not straighten her back. Elvis hurriedly placed the bowl down, then patted Gu Mingming's back while turning around to look at Leah, who was smiling like an idiot. "Did you freeze yourself, silly? Aren't you going to get some water?" I can still do a small thing for Mingming before I die, I'm so happy." Leah nodded and smiled as he took Gu Mingming's cup. He poured a cup of warm water from the stone pot at the side and passed it to Elvis. As Elvis was in a hurry to receive it, his nails accidentally cut Lee's fingers. Blood, bleeding? And a little pain? So, this is not an illusion? Aside from the topic, babies, don't say that I mistreated Leah. After a while, when one is put up for adoption, Leah will be a child with a biological mother. Then will I still dare to mistreat him in the future? Chapter 286. Why are you in a daze? Water. Elvis was very surprised by Lee's state this time. Leah had always been meticulous and sharp, such a slow reaction was unlike him. Leah was called back to his senses by Elvis and wanted to pass the cup to Elvis, but he suddenly changed direction halfway and walked straight to Gu Mingming's side. He carried Gu Mingming, who had just vomited, and bent one knee to the ground while the other was bent at a 90-degree angle. He used his leg as a chair for Gu Mingming to sit down, then used his big tail to support her back, turning himself into a human fox chair. With both hands free, he wiped away the filth at the side of Gu Mingming's lips with one hand and passed the cup to her lips with the other, saying gently, "Come, drink some water." Gu Mingming was dizzy from vomiting and could not care less about who was taking care of her. She drank a mouthful of water from the side of the cup, rinsed her mouth and spat it out. Then she drank another mouthful before forcefully swallowing it down, suppressing the nauseous feeling. Leah stuck out his tongue and licked away the water stain at the side of Gu Mingming's lips. This action shocked Gu Mingming, who had just regained her senses, and she instinctively took a step back. She looked at Leah warily and asked, "What are you doing?" Leah stretched out both his hands, one holding a cup of water and the other holding a bunch of grapes that had the texture of ice crystals. He tilted his head and said, "I don't have hands anymore." Gu Mingming lifted her sleeves to wipe her mouth, then laughed dryly and said, "It's all right, I can do it myself." Leah looked at Gu Mingming with a wronged look and said, "You were the one who held my hand first?" Gu Mingming could not refute him. The education in the modern world was different from the Qing dynasty. It was normal for a friend who had not returned for 3 days to pull down his arm to warm himself by the fire and drink a cup of hot water, but to Leah, it was a special hint. Gu Mingming sighed and stood up from Lee's legs. She said, "Sorry, I was careless. I will take note in the future." Leah followed Gu Mingming up and hugged her from behind. Like a dog abandoned by its owner, he said pitifully, "Compared to an apology, I want to hear your confession more." Leah. Gu Mingming did not struggle with all her might. She could not deny that the stories Elvis had told her had loosened her grip on Leah. The human heart was made of flesh. "I won't cross the line again. I won't be greedy for more." Leah was not like Elvis, who could not wait to rub Gu Mingming into his body every time he hugged her. Instead, he was loose and soft. It gave Gu Mingming space to breathe but did not allow her to break free at will. It was a gentle trap, not terrifying but equally fatal. "I will abide by your boundaries, so treat me a little better, just a little, okay?" Gu Mingming could not reject him, because Elvis said that she was the only one who could free Leah from the clutches of hatred all these years. If she took drastic measures without holding back, she might very well be the last straw that broke Lee's back. After all, they had fallen in love once. If she really wanted to push Leah to his death, Gu Mingming knew that she could not bring herself to do it. But if she were to give herself to someone just because of pity, Gu Mingming knew that she did not have that much love for this level of sacrifice. Digression. Leah. Feeling wronged, he bit his handkerchief. Chapter 287. Leah, let's reconcile. Gu Mingming gently pushed Lee's arms away. Her actions were not violent and it made Leah unable to continue restraining her. Gu Mingming took a step forward and turned to look at Leah. She continued, "I liked you from the bottom of my heart back then. I don't know where we would be if so many things did not happen. Maybe I would mate with you and bear your children. Maybe even if you did not do those things that made me sad, I would still break up with you. Because liking is just liking, it's not love." Leah could not maintain his smile and his trembling lips made one's heart ache. He plucked a grape that looked like an ice crystal and stuffed it into Gu Mingming's mouth without any explanation. He then said to himself, "This is called xueling fruit. It's only available during winter. There are not many people who have eaten it in the beast world. Even our snow fox tribe would not take the risk to look for it during winter. But its taste is very special and all the females who have eaten it say they like it. Eat more while it's fresh. Don't waste my effort." With that, he stuffed all the xueling fruits into Gu Mingming's arms and turned to leave. That silhouette was fleeing in panic. He could remain calm even when facing enemies stronger than him. But he was always defeated in front of Gu Mingming. He did not know what he was afraid of. At least Gu Mingming did not destroy that relationship. She said she wanted to reconcile with him. She even admitted that she liked him. Shouldn't this be something to be happy about? But why did his heart hurt so much? It was even more painful than the day she made it. He must have suffered frostbite while searching for the xueling fruit. If not, why would there be a layer of 1,000-year-old ice on his heart? It was hard yet fragile. Just one word from Gu Mingming would shatter it into tiny ice shards. Gu Mingming looked at the xueling fruit in her arms. She did not chase after Leah. She knew that with Lee's intelligence he would definitely be able to guess what she wanted to say. Giving him some time to slowly accept it might be the best outcome for everyone. Could people who had fallen in love still be friends? This was a topic that questioned human nature. As Gu Mingming herself, she did not believe it. But Leah, other than a friend, what other identity could she give him? Gu Mingming sighed and sat back on the bed. She used a small bowl to divide the xueling fruit into 3 portions and held one bowl for herself to eat. The taste was a little sour and a little sweet. It tasted a little like a mangosteen without its skin, and a little like an unripe kiwi. That smell was magical, but it successfully suppressed the waves of nausea that Gu Mingming could not suppress just now. Unknowingly, his share of xueling fruits had been emptied. Gu Mingming licked her lips and secretly stretched her hand towards Elvis's little bowl. Just one will do, just one. Gu Mingming's hand hesitated for a long time above the bowl before she picked the biggest one and stuffed it into her mouth. That mouthful of crispy sweetness made her feel extremely satisfied. Ah, the food in other people's bowls is indeed more delicious. Gu Mingming sucked on her fingers and stared at the bowl of tempting xueling fruits. She looked around and then said softly, just one more, just one more. Gu Mingming looked at the bowl of tempting xueling fruits. Chapter 288. Hubby, Gu Mingming shouted at the top of her lungs. Elvis answered and came over with a bowl of steaming fish and potatoes in his hands. Leah followed behind him with a bowl of roasted sweet potatoes that were just taken from the fire pit. The moment the two of them entered, they saw Gu Mingming kneeling by the bed, her eyes staring fixedly at the 2 bowls at the side of the bed. That look of her swallowing her saliva was clearly written on her face that said, "I want to eat," but she was trying her best to hold it back. It was very lovable. Gu Mingming's eyes were glued to the bowls at the side of the bed. Elvis sat beside Gu Mingming and glanced at the 2 bowls. Each bowl was filled with xueling fruits, but one bowl had more while the other bowl had less. What's wrong? Elvis did not understand why Gu Mingming was staring at the 2 bowls in a daze. Eat if you want, these are all yours. Gu Mingming shook her head and pointed at the bowl with more fruits. This is Li's. Then she pointed at the bowl with less fruits. This is yours. Gu Mingming carried the smaller bowl and lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. Her voice was filled with grievance as she pouted and explained, "You and Leah originally had the same amount, but I couldn't help it." Gu Mingming smacked her lips. There was no longer any sweetness in her mouth and only a sour taste was left. But it was this taste that made her unable to stop herself. She steeled her heart and passed the bowl to Elvis. She turned her face to the other side and said with an expression as if she could not bear to look, "Here, hurry and eat. If you don't eat, I will finish it all." Elvis's heart was so warm that it was a mess. He held the food with one hand and hugged Gu Mingming's waist with the other to pull her into his arms. He smiled helplessly and said, "Do you think I will snatch your food?" Gu Mingming shook her head and pursed her lips without saying a word. Elvis said again, "Then what are you hesitating for? Hurry and eat." Gu Mingming still shook her head and passed the bowl with xueling fruits to Elvis again. "We are husband and wife. We should share blessings and misfortunes together. It doesn't make sense for me to be the only one eating delicious food and you to face danger alone." Elvis knew that Gu Mingming was still upset over the fact that he had hidden her away to fight the stray beasts alone. These few days she had been blaming herself for being so useless. How could she be so useless when faced with danger and be unable to do anything other than watch from the sidelines? Elvis didn't know what it meant to be a weakling, but he knew that it couldn't be anything good. So, in order to appease her, he promised to bring her along to do survival training with the baby after she gave birth. Only then did she feel slightly better about it, but she still couldn't let it go completely. Every time he saw Gu Mingming distressed over this matter, Elvis felt that he had been too kind to let those stray beasts leave. If he could turn back time, he would definitely make them regret coming to St. Nazir. No, he would make them regret being born into this world. But now, Elvis's priority was to comfort Gu Mingming. Exchanging a look with Leah, Leah walked forward and sat sideways in front of Gu Mingming. He pointed at the bowl with more food and asked, "This is mine?" Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Yes, you worked so hard outside for 3 days to find it, you have to have a taste no matter what. Don't worry, I didn't eat any of yours, not even a single one." But Leah flipped over and laid sideways on the edge of the bed. He used his elbow to support his chin and said, "But I had already eaten a lot when I was plucking them. Now that I think about it, I can still feel the acid in my mouth. I don't want to eat any more." Aside from the topic, today was the first time I deleted a reader's comment. To be honest, I felt a little down. Actually, you have the right to not like my novel and you also have the right to not read it. But you really don't have to say such harsh words. Authors are also human and can be hurt. If you feel that my novel can't attract you, can't you turn around gracefully and give each other some face and part on good terms? What else can you gain by saying such harsh words in the comments section other than making yourself look like a person with no morals? I don't know if you will see this comment, but I still want to say it. Whatever my babies say, I'll take it seriously. Chapter 289. Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. The smile that came from the bottom of her heart was a joy that even an amazing actor could not act out. Her little hand secretly reached towards Li's bowl and stopped before touching it. She looked at Leah and asked, "You really don't want to eat?" Leah nodded his head nonchalantly. Then he gently pushed the small bowl into Gu Mingming's hands and said, "Here, it's all for you. Eat it." Gu Mingming smiled brightly. She held the small bowl in her arms so tightly that only her teeth could be seen. She said sincerely, "Leah, thank you." Leah smiled and nodded without saying a word. After waiting for 2 days and 2 nights for the xueling fruits to ripen, the cold wind that was as sharp as a knife felt as painful as being cut by a knife. After enduring for 2 days and nights, he only managed to pluck such a small bunch. But it was enough to see Gu Mingming eating so happily and smiling so blissfully. Elvis frowned and asked, "This is sour?" Gu Mingming placed a xueling fruit into her mouth. Then she nodded at Elvis with a blissful face as a reply. Elvis, on the other hand, poured the xueling fruit in his bowl into Gu Mingming's bowl with a look of disdain. He said, "I am a wolf. I only eat meat and not grass. Especially not this kind of grass that is so sour that even my teeth become soft. It's all for you. Eat it." Happiness came too suddenly. Gu Mingming felt a blow from happiness. Her life was complete. Gu Mingming ate the xueling fruit that was split into 3 in satisfaction. She was so happy that she rolled around on the bed. Elvis and Leah looked at each other and smiled. What in this world was more precious than Gu Mingming's smiling face? "My queen, don't you feel sour after eating so many sour fruits?" Elvis placed the fish and potato stew in front of Gu Mingming, hoping that she would take a bite. But Gu Mingming suddenly covered her nose and said, "Quick! Take it away. I'm going to vomit." Gu Mingming's heart ached for the xueling fruit. She endured the burning sensation in her throat and refused to spit it out. Elvis hurriedly took the fish away. When he came back, there was only clean water in the bowl. He was prepared to let Gu Mingming rinse her mouth. Gu Mingming calmed herself down. She laid on the bed lazily and said, "Every day potato stew and fish stew. I want to vomit just by hearing potatoes and fish." Compared to the past years, their food this year was actually more sumptuous. But to Gu Mingming of the food. But Leah replied with a smile, "Being able to do something for Mingming is the first time I'm thankful for my snow fox bloodline." With that, Leah turned to look at Gu Mingming and asked gently, like a kindergarten teacher coaxing a child who was unwilling to eat, "Mingming, tell me, what do you want to eat? I'll help you find it." Gu Mingming thought to herself, "I want to eat dongpo pork, hot and sour noodles, sesame paste noodles and mutton buns." Chapter 290. Upon hearing that, Gu Mingming was instantly energized. She knew that there were many seasonings now used for cooking that were used as herbs in the past. She could name them like pepper, star anise, fennel, cinnamon, tangerine peel, 1,000 miles fragrant. Slapping her forehead, Gu Mingming said, "Sai, why didn't I think of that? Quick, 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 bring it to me." Leah looked at Gu Mingming's energetic look and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then he opened up the beast's skin that contained the herbs and placed it in front of Gu Mingming. When he came out of his cave, he was in a hurry. At that time, he didn't have the mood to organize these things, so when he opened the package, many medicinal herbs were mixed together. Even Leah had to spend some time to differentiate the species, let alone Gu Mingming being able to tell anything at a glance. Leah laid beside Gu Mingming and slowly picked up the herbs one by one to identify them before placing them separately. Gu Mingming was not interested in those that she could not name. She just quickly searched through the pile of herbs for something that she could recognize. Sometimes, happiness came so unexpectedly. Ah! Gu Mingming took out a fiery red rhizome from the pile of herbs and held it with both hands, looking at it as if it was a rare treasure. She was so shocked that she could not even speak. But Leah snatched the fiery red herb from Gu Mingming's hands and said with a serious face, "I can't do this, it's too dangerous." Gu Mingming tilted her head and looked at Leah. "What's so dangerous about chili? Do the chilies here fart or something?" Leah placed the chili behind him, as if he was afraid that Gu Mingming would suddenly pounce over and snatch it away. He said, "This flame crystal fruit is used to attack the enemy. It's a magical weapon that can take them by surprise and win with one move. It's really dangerous. Don't play with this, okay?" Attack type. Gu Mingming smiled evilly. "Don't tell me you want to grind this into powder and scatter it on the enemy's face?" Leah was stunned. How did you know?" Gu Mingming slapped her thighs and laughed maniacally. "Haha, not only do I know, I also know that this move is called Eye stinging? Wicked Leah, you're too wicked. Leah and Elvis could not continue the conversation as they looked at each other and waited for her to finish laughing. Gu Mingming was finally tired of laughing. She opened her palms and said, I'm better at this than you. Hand it over quickly, don't make me snatch it away. Leah hesitated because he had once accidentally gotten some in his eyes. That feeling was really unbearable. At that time he thought that his eyes were going to be crippled. He really did not want Gu Mingming to touch such a dangerous thing. Gu Mingming was getting impatient. She clicked her tongue and used her elbow to poke Elvis. Hubby. Elvis looked at Leah helplessly and said, give it to her. But. Leah frowned and met Elvis's eyes with his hands still behind his back. Elvis did not let Leah finish his sentence and directly said, Xiaoming is the head of the household, you all have to listen to her. Leah was stunned. He looked into Elvis's eyes and could not say a word. So, Elvis meant that he acknowledged him, as a member of Mingming's family? Elvis ignored the change in Lee's expression and repeated, give it to her. Chapter 291. Gu Mingming took over the chili and brought it to her mouth right in front of Elvis and Leah. She took a bite and started chewing with a crunching sound. Elvis and Lee's faces were filled with shock, giving Gu Mingming a strange sense of accomplishment. The two males were so shocked that they could not say a word. They could only watch as Gu Mingming swallowed the chili directly into her stomach. She took a sip of water from the bedside and sighed in satisfaction. Feels good. Elvis took over Gu Mingming's cup and filled it up for her. Then he asked worriedly, are you all right? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Let Leah take a look at you. Gu Mingming smacked her lips and said, if I'm uncomfortable, it's not satisfying enough. Leah, do you have any more chili? Give me a few more. Leah saw that Gu Mingming's expression did not look like she was pretending. Then he thought that if Gu Mingming did not use the yellow root to cook, he would never have thought that the herb used to expel the cold could also be a condiment. No longer doubting Gu Mingming's thoughts, Leah rummaged through the pile of herbs and found 7 to 8 chili to pass to Gu Mingming, saying, I did not prepare a lot of these offensive herbs, because if I use too much, others will be on guard. So, I will only use them to win when Elvis and I can't defend against them even if we work together. I only have this much, is it enough? Gu Mingming frowned and sighed deeply, saying, it's a little, but it's enough to eat a meal of fish in hot chili oil. Leah remained silent for a moment, saying, there are a lot of these during the rainy season. No one wants them if they rot on the ground. If you like them, I can pick them up for you next year. Gu Mingming nodded and then shook her head, saying, I'm not going out to pick them up, it's too troublesome. Leah tilted his head and looked at Gu Mingming. Just when he wanted to say that he was not afraid of trouble, Gu Mingming cut open the chili and took out the seeds inside, saying, bring a small bowl over and put this in. I will plant some during the rainy season next year, it's more convenient to eat. Plant? Leah was confused. Yeah, don't tell me that no one farms here. Leah and Elvis shook their heads honestly. Gu Mingming's lips twitched, asking, so you only eat meat? You won't eat anything else? Leah replied, females would occasionally want to eat some fruits while males mostly eat meat. There are also a small number of herbivorous orcs, but they are independent tribes and usually don't mix with us. Gu Mingming rolled her eyes as she thought to herself. Her knowledge of farming was limited to the theories in books, and she had only tried it once. For the convenience of making facial masks, she planted a huge pot of aloe vera. But the problem was that aloe vera was a small seedling dug from someone else's house, and could grow just by sticking it into the soil. Chili pepper, it should be about the same, right? Gu Mingming had wanted to count on the experienced people here to teach her, but it seemed like there was no hope now. She could only explore by herself, so she looked at Leah and said, to be on the safe side, bring me to the place where you found these chilies during the rainy season next year. I will bring 2 mature ones back. Then use the seeds and plant some yourself. Let's see which one bears fruit. But Leah was at a loss. There are many of these things in the mountains and they grow every year. I can go and pluck them for you when you want them. Why go through so much trouble? Chapter 292. Leah had originally thought that since Gu Mingming liked this chili, he would help her find more next year so that he could do more things for her. But since Gu Mingming wanted to transplant it, then so be it. As long as she was happy, anything was fine. So even though Elvis and Leah felt that there was no need to transplant it, but since Gu Mingming liked it, they naturally had no reason to object. This matter was settled temporarily. Gu Mingming asked Leah to go to the tree outside the cave to look for the fish that she had yet to marinate, while she brought Elvis to start a fire to boil water. Elvis ginger slices. Gu Mingming stood by the pot and instructed. Elvis used his fingernails to cut 2 slices of ginger in a practiced manner and passed it to Gu Mingming. Then he sat at the side and watched. Yes, this was the only thing Gu Mingming allowed him to do when he was cooking. Leah carried 2 fish that Gu Mingming had yet to marinate into the cold and walked in. He looked at Gu Mingming and asked, "They are already so hard, can they still be eaten?" Gu Mingming took over the fish and playfully knocked the 2 fishes against each other, causing some ice shards to fall from the fish. Gu Mingming giggled and turned to look at Elvis, asking, "Hubby, can your claws cut the frozen fish?" Elvis took the fish from Gu Mingming and looked at her unhappily. Then he grabbed her little hand and placed it on his waist, saying, "This thing is too cold, don't take it yourself next time." Gu Mingming smiled sweetly and agreed. Elvis turned his right hand into a sharp claw and slashed at the frozen fish. That frozen fish was like tofu being cut by a small knife, cleanly sliced into pieces. Most importantly, every piece of fish was as thick as the ginger Elvis had cut. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded as she shook her head and clapped. Seeing Elvis turn to look at her, she could not help but give him 2 thumbs up and praised, "Hubby, you're too awesome. I won't dare to pull your ears anymore. If you can't control yourself and scratch me, tiske tiske." Elvis retracted his sharp claws and his hands returned to their slender and fair state. He poked Gu Mingming's head and said, "My claws and fangs will never be used on you. Don't worry too much." Gu Mingming smiled fawningly. "That's right, hubby loves me the most, mua." Elvis accepted Gu Mingming's exaggerated praise with a smile. No matter how many times he heard it, it was always useful. Gu Mingming broke the washed chili into pieces and threw them into the pot to cook. She smacked her lips and said, "Without the pichin bean paste, the fish in hot chili oil would definitely not be cooked well. Let's eat hot pot today." Gu Mingming said as she rummaged through Lee's bag of herbs. She found some star anise and cinnamon, but there was nothing else that could be used to make hot pot. So after informing Leah, he took some of these 2 ingredients and threw them into the pot. She then called Elvis to enter the depths of the cave where the cured meat was stored. She found 2 pieces of meat with bones and asked Elvis to shave the meat off. Then she broke the bones into small pieces and placed them into the pot to cook the soup base. Gu Mingming took a deep breath when the rich bone broth was filled with an alluring aroma, before placing the fish into the pot. She used the long chopsticks that Elvis had specially made for her to rinse the meat, then picked up a piece of fish and sent it into her mouth. The fish was caught when it was at its freshest and fattest. The weather was so cold that it felt like it had been placed into a frozen freezer. It did not affect the freshness of the fish at all, and instead, it added a firm and chewy texture to it. When the piece of fish entered her stomach, the spicy sensation instantly whetted Gu Mingming's appetite. Her index finger moved as if all the blood in her body was boiling. Aside from the topic, today's update had ended and it was the last explosive update during the PK period. If I pass, I will continue with 6 updates tomorrow. If I don't win, then, Chapter 293. Unfortunately, Gu Mingming had eaten too much without knowing the limits of the food. In the end, her stomach could not take the stimulation and she vomited out everything she had eaten. Not only the fish hot pot, but also the xueling fruit that Leah had brought back after searching for 3 days outside. Gu Mingming rubbed her deflated stomach and suddenly felt extremely wronged. Such delicious food was wasted just like that? The more she thought about it, the sadder she felt. In the end, she cried so hard that Elvis and Leah were so anxious that they could not do anything about it. Gu Mingming's emotions fluctuated more and more. As her stomach swelled up like a balloon day by day, the uneasiness had a cumulative effect on Gu Mingming. 2 months later, Gu Mingming had reached a stage where she could not get down on her own. She could not bend her back or even lower her head. Although she rarely vomited, the more serious problem was that she could not solve her bowel movement problem by herself. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming every day as if he was hugging a child to relieve her bowel movement. It was already shameful when he was peeing, let alone when he was defecating. Every time she went to the toilet, it was an act that refreshed Gu Mingming's shamelessness. Most importantly, Elvis would come back with a serious face to discuss the smell and shape of her bowel movement with Leah, then analyze her health condition. Gu Mingming had a feeling that every time Elvis hugged her to relieve her bowel movement, he would sniff hard behind her to confirm the smell and his eyes would stare at the entire process of her bowel movement without blinking at all. Damn, was it Yao Yao Ling? Damn, I seem to have married a pervert. That night, Gu Mingming did not sleep well. The little fellows were too active in her stomach as if they were fighting for something. Ugh. Gu Mingming frowned, supporting herself with one hand and holding her stomach with the other, trying to sit up. What's wrong? Elvis almost did not sleep for the past few days. He stayed by Gu Mingming's side every day, carefully observing her every move. The babies are too noisy, I can't sleep. Get up and sit for a while. Gu Mingming stretched out an arm for Elvis to support, then leaned into Elvis's embrace. Elvis used his tail as a cushion to make Gu Mingming more comfortable. He placed his hand lightly on Gu Mingming's stomach and felt the little ones rolling around mischievously in her stomach. He frowned and said coldly, "You don't have much time left in the void mother's stomach, so you'd better behave. Because the pain you've caused my wife now when you come out, I'll return it tenfold." But Gu Mingming laughed and pointed at Elvis's brow. "You really have the ability to threaten your own son?" Elvis's expression was rather solemn. His heart ached as he stroked the hair on Gu Mingming's forehead. "If I had known from the start that pregnancy would cause you so much trouble, I would have shot them to the ground." Gu Mingming laughed even harder. But with this laugh, her stomach started to hurt. Frowning, Gu Mingming turned around to ask Elvis, "How long have I been pregnant?" Elvis wiped the fine beads of sweat off Gu Mingming's forehead and replied, "Counting the days, it should be a day or two. She should be giving birth soon." Gu Mingming came to a sudden realization. These little wolf cubs are not playing. They're ranking in my stomach to see who's going to be the boss. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy, xuanhuan, for the flowers. Chapter 294. Elvis was stunned for a moment and asked, "You're going to give birth?" Gu Mingming nodded. The pain coming from her lower abdomen was like the winter in the beast world. It came without warning and without any connection. In just 2 breaths' time, Gu Mingming was in so much pain that she could not speak. Grabbing onto Elvis's arm, Gu Mingming's hand trembled in pain. It's fine. Don't be afraid. I'm here." Elvis hugged Gu Mingming to stabilize her body while howling at Leah, who was staying in the outermost cave. Before Leah entered, he already knew what had happened. Without another word, he set up the pot and started boiling snow water. This was common knowledge that Gu Mingming had told him previously. After the water boiled, he walked over and helped Elvis hug Gu Mingming's upper body. He used his tail to cushion Gu Mingming's waist so that Gu Mingming's waist did not need to be hung. Elvis held onto Gu Mingming's hand tightly, allowing her nails to dig into his flesh. However, he told her calmly and firmly, "It's all right, don't worry, I'm here." Elvis turned himself into a half-orc and covered Gu Mingming's stomach with his large tail. On one hand it was to prevent her from catching a cold, and on the other hand it was to block her vision. On the other hand, he transformed his head back into his wolf form and crawled under the curve of Gu Mingming's left leg. He stuck out his moist and warm tongue to lick the little wolf's head, where the skull could already be seen. Ah! Gu Mingming was in excruciating pain. She had no other choice but to scream. Leah hugged Gu Mingming's neck and pressed her against his chest. He kissed her forehead continuously and whispered into her ear, "Don't be scared, don't be scared. Elvis and I are watching over you. You will be fine, you will definitely be fine." Gu Mingming felt as if thousands of beasts were galloping in her heart. She wanted to scold, "What's the use of guarding me? If you have the ability, why don't you take my place?" Unfortunately, she was in too much pain and didn't have the strength to curse. On Elvis's side, the little wolf's head had already squeezed out from Gu Mingming's body. Elvis immediately licked away the placenta on the little wolf's face to prevent it from suffocating to death. He tried to gently pull the little wolf's head out, to see if it could help Gu Mingming give birth faster and lessen the pain. But with this tug, Gu Mingming almost fainted, scaring Elvis so much that he did not dare to act rashly anymore. He just felt that these wolf cubs were getting uglier and uglier and were not likable at all. A dash. Gu Mingming took a deep breath and exerted force, feeling something slipping out from her body. That feeling was a little mysterious, just like when one was constipated and had to endure the pain to excrete. This time Gu Mingming had used all her strength. Like a fish that had been stranded, she opened her mouth and panted heavily. While she was not in so much pain, she tilted her head and asked Elvis in a weak voice, "Hubby, are you done giving birth?" Elvis used his fastest speed to bite off the little wolf's umbilical cord, then licked the little wolf that was covered in blood clean. Turning his head back to human form, he sat up straight and used his other hand to grab the back of the little wolf's neck, bringing it in front of Gu Mingming. "The first one is born. It's not like you, it's so ugly." Gu Mingming let go of Elvis's hand and stretched both her hands forward to catch her first child. This feeling was very strange. The little fellow in her arms looked like a newborn husky no matter how she looked at it, but she could not treat it as a pet. Kissing its little face that still had its eyes tightly shut, Gu Mingming smiled blissfully. Aside from the topic, to be honest, I wrote this birth process when I watched the husky give birth. I have never seen a real wolf giving birth. If there are professionals who have seen wolves giving birth and found any loopholes, feel free to point them out. Thank you. Then, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy. Beard is like frost, for her comment. Chapter 295. Just as Gu Mingming wanted to tease her child, another wave of pain came from her lower abdomen. Gu Mingming frowned and glared at Elvis angrily. There are more? Elvis nodded and replied, look at this stomach, there are at least 2 more. Elvis, divorce. I don't want to give birth anymore. Gu Mingming shouted, but at the same time she started to exert force with all her might. With the first opening the way, the birth of the second one was obviously much smoother. Although Gu Mingming was still in so much pain that she could not speak, the pain coming from her lower body was not as heart-wrenching as when she gave birth to the first one. Maybe it was because she was in too much pain that she became numb. No matter what, this was a good thing for Gu Mingming. Elvis's actions were swift as he licked the embryonic membranes clean one by one. Then, as if he was carrying old Wang's newborn huskies next door, he captured them one by one and placed them in front of Gu Mingming. He let Gu Mingming take a look at them before lining them up beside the first one, not allowing Gu Mingming to hug them anymore. Finally all 3 were born. Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief and asked carefully, this time, there are no more, right? Elvis raised his head and looked at Gu Mingming with a face full of blood. He pursed his lips and answered, there should be 1 more. Gu Mingming grabbed the water bowl at the side and smashed it on Elvis's head. She roared with a thick sobbing tone, divorce. I want a divorce. Elvis sighed and glared at the 3 little ones who were mumbling beside Gu Mingming. Then he replied seriously, Xiaoming, just give up on this idea. Even if you beat me to death, I will never divorce you. Gu Mingming originally thought that after experiencing the torture of the first 3, the 4th one would be more successful. But the result was the exact opposite. The 4th one seemed to be bigger than the previous 3. It was so full that Gu Mingming felt like her body was going to break down. Yet, this fellow did not even have the chance to peek his little head out. Elvis also noticed the abnormality and hurriedly went back to lick Gu Mingming's wound. He used his saliva as a lubricant and even sucked lightly, trying to help Gu Mingming with external force. But all these were useless. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and exerted all her strength, but the child's head was too big and was stuck there. After giving birth to the first 3 babies, Gu Mingming was actually exhausted. It would be fine if this baby was born successfully, but unfortunately, it was a big-headed baby. After a few rounds, Gu Mingming could not even breathe smoothly. Not to mention exerting strength, she did not even have the strength to scold Elvis. Elvis frowned and looked at the exhausted Gu Mingming, then looked at the 4th brother who was stuck there and could not even stretch his head out. He leaned forward and kissed Gu Mingming's forehead, saying in a low voice, we have 3 children, that's enough. Gu Mingming was in a daze, but Elvis's words still touched a chord in her heart. She grabbed Elvis's hand weakly and asked in a breathless voice, what do you want to do? Elvis's blue eyes were filled with heartache and anger. He would not allow anyone to torture Gu Mingming like this, not even himself, not even his son. I'll reach in, grind it up and pull it out. This way, you won't be in pain. Elvis planted a light kiss on Gu Mingming's forehead and said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have let you suffer like this. Very soon, everything will be fine, trust me. Aside from the topic, on the first day, Susu was very nervous. Thank you to all the babies who came to support Susu on the first day. Thank you for making me feel at ease. Remember to join the group activities. Chapter 296. No. Don't. Gu Mingming grabbed onto Elvis's hand. She did not know where she got the strength from, but she gripped onto Elvis's wrist tightly like a pair of pliers. Her curved eyebrows were knitted into a dead knot. She clenched her teeth and persisted in exerting strength again and again. Her face was pale and Gu Mingming clearly could not hold on any longer. Xiaoming, I love you. As Elvis spoke, he had already turned his hands into wolf claws and reached towards the little wolf cub stuck in Gu Mingming's body. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and growled with a hoarse voice, if you dare to touch my child, I will die in front of you. Elvis froze and did not dare to move. He clenched his teeth but could not do anything to Gu Mingming. She had pinched his weak spot, making it impossible for him to resist. Seeing that Elvis had given up on harming the baby, Gu Mingming was slightly relieved. Trying her best to ignore the pain coming from her lower body, Gu Mingming adjusted her breathing again and again. When she felt that her energy had recovered slightly, she then said to Elvis, "Use your claws to cut open my flesh at the place where the baby is stuck. Be careful not to hurt the baby's head. This way he can be born smoothly and I won't have to suffer so much." Elvis frowned and looked at Gu Mingming without moving. "Listen to me. Where I come from, this is called a lateral incision. It's a very common fertility measure." Elvis was still frowning. After staying silent for a long time, he said, "I can't hurt you." Gu Mingming was really speechless. She struggled to straighten her body with all her might and hugged Elvis's head with one hand, pulling him in front of her. She pressed her forehead against Elvis's and said, "If you don't do this, the child and I will both die. Just a small cut on me now and the baby and I will be safe. You're not hurting me. You're saving me and the baby." Elvis frowned, but he could not resist Gu Mingming's pleading gaze. In the end, he nodded and lay between Gu Mingming's legs again, aiming his sharp wolf claws at the place where the baby's skull was stuck. Elvis's gaze was deep. He was hesitating. Should he choose to kill the baby so that he would not hurt Gu Mingming and bear her hatred? Or should he listen to Gu Mingming and cut open her flesh to let this evil creature be born? "If you dare touch my child, I will kill myself in front of you." The image of Gu Mingming roaring with bloodshot eyes replayed in Elvis's mind. He was not afraid that Gu Mingming would hate him, he was not afraid that Gu Mingming would do anything to him, but he was afraid that she would hurt herself. The sharp nails trembled as they cut into Gu Mingming's flesh. Blood flowed down from the wound. Gu Mingming grasped the timing due to the pain and exerted force, almost fainting from the pain. But luckily her lower abdomen was empty. She knew that the last baby had been born safely. Although Elvis was unwilling, he still licked this child who had caused Gu Mingming so much suffering, before placing him beside the other three little ones. Gu Mingming had already fainted from exhaustion. Elvis's heart ached as he took her from Li's arms. Without her bulging stomach, she was so light that she seemed to be weightless. This made Elvis feel extremely uneasy. He liked the chubby Gu Mingming more. He would rather have her twist his ear domineeringly and call herself queen than to have her quiet and lifeless like a doll whose soul had been hollowed out. Glancing at the four little ones sleeping quietly at the side, Elvis's emotions were extremely complicated. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy Huiyan-chan for the diamonds and flowers. At the same time, congratulations to the baby for becoming the first scholar in this article. Thank you. Also, thank you to the little babies from QQ reading The Long Winter and The Rest of My Life for their 99 reading points. Chapter 297. When Gu Mingming woke up again, it was already the afternoon of the second day. The four little fellows huddled into Gu Mingming's arms while whining. As long as Elvis and Leah dared to touch one of them, the other three would scream at the top of their lungs. In order not to disturb Gu Mingming, Elvis endured the thick veins on his forehead and glared at the four fellows making a mess. But it was a pity that newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. Newborn wolf cubs were also not afraid of their fathers. No matter how Elvis released his powerful aura, the four little ones just huddled into Gu Mingming's arms while whining, completely unafraid of their own fathers. The moment Gu Mingming opened her eyes, she was melted by her four sons. With their eyes still closed, they rubbed their little pink noses into her arms. Their short limbs could not support their chubby bodies and they all laid on the bed, whimpering. Gu Mingming reached out her hand and tapped one of their little faces. The little fellow immediately turned his head and sucked on her finger with all his might. Hungry? Perhaps it was the nature of a mother and son. Gu Mingming instantly understood what her sons meant even though there was no verbal communication. She turned to look at Leah and Elvis. The former's face was as warm as a spring breeze while the latter's face was as cold as ice. Those who did not know better would have thought that this nest was Li's cubs. "Both of you go out for a while, I want to feed the kids." Actually, Gu Mingming wanted to ask Leah to leave, but she was too embarrassed to only chase one of them away, so she could only chase both of them away. But Leah shrugged his shoulders and said, "Are you sure you can feed all four of them at the same time, without any help?" Gu Mingming did not understand what Leah meant at first. When she followed Li's gaze and lowered her head to look at her chest, her face instantly burned up. Damn it, there were only 2 milk bottles and 4 sons, what should she do? Elvis walked forward and picked up the third and second brothers with each hand, saying, "Feed those 2 first, I will look after these 2 first." Gu Mingming looked at Leah and thought to herself, "Why aren't you going out yet?" But Leah sat on the ground nonchalantly, looking like a good student waiting for the old professor to start his lesson. He had no intention of leaving at all. Gu Mingming held it in for a long while, and the two sons in Elvis's arms wailed even more miserably, as if Elvis was not their father but a human trafficker. She could not wait any longer, her sons would starve to death if she waited any longer. Gu Mingming cleared her throat and said, "That? Elvis can stay behind to help me. Leah, why don't you help me prepare some food first?" Lee's eyes narrowed with a smile and nodded in agreement before walking out. Once Leah went out, Gu Mingming hurriedly removed her clothes and started breastfeeding her two sons in a rather shameful position. The reason why this position was a little shameful was because if an Elvis who was lying on his back was added to the scene, it would be a F***King live erotic scene. Gu Mingming was lying down to feed her sons while Elvis was focused on playing the role of a human trafficker. He completely ignored the struggles and protests of his two sons and only focused on watching his wife's flirtatious and seductive posture. Gu Mingming was a little embarrassed from Elvis's stare. Although she had already mated and the children were all convinced, it was still weird to be stared at like this. So Gu Mingming found a topic and asked, "Why feed these two first and then the other two? Did you catch them randomly?" Elvis shook his head and said, "The one on your left is the first to be born and the one on your right is the last to be born. Those two are the strongest in the litter and have a higher chance of survival than the two in my hands. So there is a limited amount of food for them." Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's little baby, 69116691. My lips only kiss me, I am Shueijin for your votes. Chapter 298. Gu Mingming was really dumbfounded after listening to him. What kind of theory was that? Does it mean that we should prioritize protecting the two stronger ones and let the two weaker ones live if they can? If they can't, then we'll just forget about it? Return my sons to me. Angered, Gu Mingming pointed at Elvis's nose and roared, "It's all flesh that fell off from my body, so you're not the one who's in excruciating pain, so you can say it so easily? Hurry and return my sons, I don't need your help." Elvis knew very well that he must have said something wrong again, but the problem was that he did not know which word he said wrong. In order to not make Gu Mingming even angrier, he obediently placed the second brother and the husband back on the bed. Gu Mingming circled her arms and the two that were carried away by Elvis flew into her arms. They raised their heads and howled like babies. Even if Gu Mingming did not understand what they were saying, she could roughly guess that their sons were complaining. So she kissed them one by one and coaxed them gently, "Don't be afraid, Mummy is here, you may have a fake daddy but it's alright, Mummy will protect you. Be good, it'll be your turn after brother and brother finish eating." The first brother seemed to have understood Gu Mingming's words. He smacked his lips and let go of Gu Mingming's chest. He flipped over and rolled to one side, giving up his spot to his brother. The two children's hands and feet were weak, and they could only wriggle forward to fight for the only position available. Gu Mingming could not really tell whether it was the second brother or the third brother who managed to snatch it. Anyway, there was only one left and he did not manage to snatch it. Feeling extremely wronged, he laid on Gu Mingming's chest and twisted his soft body, howling in a childish voice. The fourth brother had no intention of moving away and continued sucking with all his might with his cheeks puffed up. Gu Mingming saw that the chest had already been stuffed down. If someone else did not come up, the one who had not eaten would definitely starve. So she gently held onto the fourth brother's butt and pried him away from her chest. But this little ancestor was like a powerful suction cup. He stretched his neck out and sucked in his mouth, refusing to let go. Gu Mingming's breasts were hurting from the pull. She took a deep breath and smacked the little butt of the fourth brother, saying, "Brothers have to take care of each other. If you don't let go, I will be the last one to feed you in the future. When the time comes, your other brothers will also protect their food like you, and you can only starve." She did not know if the fourth brother understood Gu Mingming's words, or if he was full, or if it was simply because he was pulled too far away and could not reach. Anyway, the moment Gu Mingming finished speaking, he let go. Gu Mingming placed him on the bed and the little fellow rolled to the side of the first brother. He rested his chin on the back of the first brother and yawned lazily. Kicking his chubby legs, he fell into a deep sleep. The second brother and third brother were eating happily when Leah came in with a stone pot. He was still smiling and glanced at Elvis, who was left to the side, giving him a sympathetic look. Then, he directly brushed past Elvis without any intention to speak up for him. He directly placed the pot on the fire and stirred it while saying, "The appetite of wolf cubs is very big. No matter how much milk you have, you will not be able to feed these four little fellows. I used the bones to boil some soup. You and the babies can drink some to replenish your nutrients. When the rainy season comes next year, I will go to the mountains to catch a female wolf for you to breastfeed. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little babies from Xiaoxiang Academy, Milk Bait Ho, and Rabbit G drinking tea for the flowers. Love you guys more. Chapter 299. Gu Mingming was still kneeling on the bed in a breastfeeding position, while the second and third brothers were still drinking milk with gusto. Damn it, Leah walked in so naturally, making Gu Mingming feel embarrassed even if she screamed. She pulled a piece of beast skin to cover herself awkwardly, then glared at Elvis, who was still in a reflective state but still did not know what he did wrong. Leah scooped the meat soup into a small bowl and a larger stone plate. He placed the stone plate beside the bed, then picked up the first and fourth brothers with each hand and placed them beside the stone plate. She did not know if it was because they were full from drinking milk or because the taste of the bone soup was not as fragrant as their mother's milk, but the two little fellows were completely indifferent to the bone soup. Leah patted their little heads lightly and shook his head helplessly. He looked at Gu Mingming and said, "Wolves learn their eating habits from their mother. They will eat whatever you teach them to eat. So, here." As Leah spoke, he placed the small bowl beside the stone plate, indicating for Gu Mingming to demonstrate how to drink the soup. Gu Mingming sighed and looked at her four babies. With her small body, she really could not feed them to their fullest, so she used one hand to support her body and the other to pick up a small bowl to finish the soup. Then she showed the empty bowl to her two sons and said, "The taste is not bad, my babies are good, do you want to try it?" That. Leah rubbed his nose and said, "The cubs have not opened their eyes yet, so they cannot see your actions. Their senses are mainly through the flow of air and the contact of their bodies. Holding a bowl with one hand is too difficult for them. They won't be able to learn it." Gu Mingming looked at Leah with a dumbfounded expression, completely unable to understand what he meant. Leah knelt beside Gu Mingming in a seductive manner, then lowered his head and stuck out his tongue to lick the side of the bowl lightly. Then he used his head to nudge the first brother. Unfortunately, the first brother did not appreciate it at all and had no intention of learning at all. He just twisted his body and snuggled into Gu Mingming's arms, then whimpered as if he was complaining to his mother that there was a weird uncle who kept touching his body and it was so annoying. Gu Mingming forced a smile with her stiff lips and asked, "I also have to lick and drink like that?" Leah nodded his head seriously. "You have to teach them in a way that they can learn." Gu Mingming looked at the two little fellows in the beast skin who were howling in protest because they could no longer suck milk. She hardened her heart. What was face worth? Compared to his son, self-esteem and whatnot were simply too weak, okay? Gu Mingming tidied up her clothes and removed the beast skin covering her body.